Welcome everyone. Please have a seat and happy Thanksgiving. It's so good to see you here on this fair weekend. I know it takes up a lot of time, and I'm sure many of you have had a lot of work to do with the fair and are really busy this weekend. If you're not busy with the fair, you're probably busy with getting together a Thanksgiving meal. So it's really good to see you here. Una is away, so I missed doing the announcements. I know if you've emailed announcements into and they weren't printed or sent out, that's because I told you I would do it and I forgot. So there are a couple of announcements that I'm aware of. That one here is about the turkey supper. The sign-up sheet for helpers of the turkey supper is downstairs. Turkey supper is Saturday, November 3rd. And it's downstairs on the lectern, so if you'd like to sign up, we'd appreciate that. David, were you going to say something about presbytery?
Sure.
Okay.
We're still having presbytery meetings until the end of December, but in the meantime, the church's regions are being formed. There was a report, a couple of ladies had attended in London. The office for Region 9, 10, 11, I believe, is going to be out of the conference office over number 6. And there's a lot of parallel stuff they wanted to mention that presbyters have part of help with the search committees. And they're still having those teams that will follow ministers on their way through. And it's now going to be under the Office of the Vocation, which has a minister assigned to it, and each ordinand or candidate is moved through the processes, and they're vested by their faith, and they're vested by how they react to whether they have an ability to make a sermon or whether they have the, just the general human characters to be a good minister. And they need, with the intensity of the programs and that, they need people to be sounding boards and talk with them. So that part, they're still going to be looking through congregations and through the presbytery members to continue that. We're not going to be Region 9 for a long time. They have assigned the numbers to them until the regions start to get together and they start to make decisions on things, and we will end up with a name that's suitable for, and not necessarily if it's biblical or whether it's geographical, but they will eventually, each one of them will have a name. So those are the pieces, I guess, that are coming up to date, and they will take effect at the first. So there's the parallel parts of it still working. Presbyterian Conference goes until the end of December, and then January 1st, the new regions and the administration will be through that.
Thank you, Dave. We appreciate that. You've been going to Presbyterian as a rep for a very long time, and it sounds like they'll still want people like you to keep up the work when it becomes a region instead of a Presbyterian conference. So thank you. Those are all the announcements that I'm aware of. I'd like to read our statement towards reconciliation. We recognize ways that Canada's Indigenous peoples help settlers survive and adapt when they arrived here. We lament the ways that Indigenous lives and culture were harmed by colonization. I got a Christ candle to symbolize the light of Christ that is with us always. Peace be with you. Invite you now to join in singing, "Come Ye Faithful People, Come." Call to worship. If you had a good breakfast, say thank you, God. If you saw harvested fields in fall colors, say thank you, God. If you are happy to be here today in this beautiful place of worship, say thank you, God. We are a part of the great communion of saints. Thank you, God. Let us pray. Loving and gracious God, we are thankful at this time of year to see such a wonderful harvest, to know that there will be an abundance of food that will carry us through the winter, and to know that many of us will spend this day surrounded by family and friends. Lord, we ask that we feel your presence with us here this day as we gather to worship and to say thanks. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I invite you now to join in singing "Bleak Cloud of Forgiveness."
breezes and the sunshine, refreshing rain. All the gifts around us are sent from heaven above. We thank you, God, holy God, for all your love. You only are the maker of all things near and far. Moving the winds like flowers, you are the evening star. The winds and waves obey you, by your words are fed. From the shore to us, your children, you give us daily bread. All the gifts around us are sent from heaven above. We thank you, God, holy God, for all your love. We thank you, Maker, for all things right and good. The season and the harvest, alike for health and food. And so good is we offer for all your holy lives. And but from us you long for thankful hearts. All the gifts around us are sent from heaven above. We thank you, God, holy God, for all your love.
I invite you now into a time of confession. God, you have given me too much. How can I choose from all the good things I have? Will my fridge hold all the food for the feast? Will I be able to sample all the foods on the table? Will I be too full for dessert? Am I bursting with gratitude? Help me, Lord, to be mindful of those who are grateful for a lot less, for those who make do with barely enough. In the midst of abundance, may I be grateful for the things that matter most. Lord, we are ever grateful for your forgiveness, for your presence, for your constant, abiding love. Amen. And now, for sharing time, we can just call it out. I think rather than talking, because I'm mindful that I was going to ask you what favorite Thanksgiving food you have, but you're sitting with the people likely you're going to eat with, and maybe that might start a little bit of some arguments, or why didn't you buy my favorite cranberry sauce? So let's just call it. What are some of the foods that you're thankful for?
Pumpkin pie.
Any other pumpkin pie? Any others? Yeah.
Pumpkin pie.
Oh, okay. That's a favorite. Anything else?
Whipped cream.
Yes.
Dressing. Yes.
Okay. Big debate: am I a sausage stuffing or just another kind? Classic. Yeah. We have a lot that we're grateful for, and now let's listen to the word of God as we hear it in Scripture.
First scriptures from Job. Now you just go back to it. If you don't have it printed. Job 12:7. But ask the animals and they will teach you, the birds of the air and they will tell you. Ask the plants of the earth and they will teach you, and the fish of the sea will declare to you. Who among all these does not know the hand of the Lord has done this? In this hand, in life of every living thing, and the breath of every human being. scripture is from Luke, chapter 17, verses 11 to 19. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him, and he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were there not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and praise to God except this foreigner?" And he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well."
And as many of our choir members are, I assume, busy with the fair, we won't have an anthem this Sunday. So we go right into the sermon. So I have an attitude of gratitude today because Thanksgiving is one of my favorite family holidays. I mean, I love Christmas at church, but Christmas as a family holiday is a little more challenging because you have to find that perfect gift for people who have everything or just are difficult to buy for. You may have to travel through difficult weather. Thanksgiving feels more laid back and a little easier for me. Especially as I'm preaching now, I'm never responsible for the whole dinner. So that makes it even a little easier for me. I realize there are people who it may not be so easy for if they're having 30 people for a meal. Well, I love getting together with family, and I love all the food of Thanksgiving, so it's easy to be grateful. I even love this time of year where the weather's getting a little cooler, it's not cold yet, there's a lot of beautiful fall colors. It's just so much to be grateful for. People love tradition at Thanksgiving. They love sharing the same dishes year after year, family favorites that you dare not change. A friend told me one year that her mother arbitrarily made the decision that they were going to have roast beef for Thanksgiving. Well, the complaining started as soon as people went through the door. How come the house doesn't smell like turkey? She will never do that again. Is there something that you look forward to having every year? Something that would really disappoint you if you didn't see it on the table? A woman, Laura Kush, told a story about her grandmother. Her grandmother made the perfect turkey. Not only was it cooked perfectly, juicy, never overcooked, never undercooked, always ready on time, but it also looked beautiful. You could have taken a picture of it and put it on the cover of Canadian Living. It was just beautiful. And everybody looked forward to her turkey at Thanksgiving. Well, everybody loved it so much that she had to call the butcher ahead of time and say, "Get me the biggest bird you can." Because there never seemed to be enough for leftovers. It all got eaten up. Well, when her grandmother passed away, they were all very, very sad. It was near Thanksgiving, and they knew that this year, Grandma wouldn't be making the turkey, and they knew it wouldn't be the same. No one really wanted to take on that job because they thought, well, really, I don't know if I can make it as good as Grandma did. But someone had to, and they knew that the turkey would be cooked, and it would still be good. But she decided at that time that maybe it's time for me to have a signature dish. Maybe it's time for me to add something to the table that people will look forward to, something new. So she worked really, really hard to make the very best cranberry sauce. She experimented with adding citrus, lemon, or orange, and whether she would use frozen cranberries or fresh, and she came up with a very delicious cranberry sauce. And sure enough, it was something that people looked forward to, and something they associated with her, because it was so lovingly made. It wasn't just a recipe, it was the care that she put into it. And it made me think of church, because we love tradition in church. I mean, we love the old hymns, and we love the prayers, and yet we're being pushed to add something new. I hope we will always sing How Great Thou Art. I hope we will always say the words, the traditional Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven. I love it. But I know that we have to add some new twists, something new here for the new generations that are coming along. And I love the new versions of the Lord's Prayer. Parker Palmer's Our Mother God, Our Father God, that speak to our understanding of God as being neither male nor female, but being spirit. It's good to have a balance between the old and the new. I love this holiday because it's about saying thank you. And we really have to remember to say thank you, and thank all the people that work so hard at putting on a great Thanksgiving meal, at putting on church, and I hope we can always do a better job of saying thank you to all the people that work so hard in making church happen. Jesus spoke about an attitude of gratitude when he healed 10 lepers. Lepers. There were no leopards. Sorry. There were 10 lepers that were gathered on the outskirts of the community as Jesus was traveling through the region of Galilee. And lepers were not allowed to mix with other people. They had to wear distinctive clothing. It was rags. They had to, some places, I think maybe in medieval times, in some places they had to announce that they were coming. They could not come in contact with other people. And for obvious reasons, leprosy is contagious. They had no public health, but instead they had religious rules and societal expectations that kept them separate. So when Jesus came upon the lepers, they shouted out to him, help us, please heal us. And Jesus healed them. And then he said, go and see the priest. Because it wasn't enough that they were healed. The priest was the person in the community that would declare someone clean or unclean. So if they didn't go see the priest and get his blessing, then they would still not have been allowed to come into community. So off they went to go and see the priest, but only one turned back to say thank you. And Jesus said there were 10 lepers, and only one came back to say thank you. And what he pointed out to the people was the one that came back was a Samaritan, a foreigner. Now, everyone looked down on Samaritans. They would maybe have been looked down on like our society might look down on refugees. So they were not, people didn't expect them to do great things. They kind of looked down on them, thought they weren't as good. So Jesus pointed out, this is a Samaritan, and he came back and said, thank you. So in a way, he was shaming the people that thought they were better than the Samaritans. Even Job in our scripture reading today, Job is, people who don't go to church, who aren't familiar with the Bible, know that Job suffered. Job suffered enormously. And if you read the book of Job and you're looking for answers as to why Job suffered or why bad things happen to good people, you won't find a good answer. It's really just not answered. This is a question that we struggle with. And yet, despite the fact that Job lost his health, he lost his wealth, he lost his family, he lost everything, he still was able at some point to be grateful for his relationship with God. He would not curse God. He struggled with God, he argued with God, but he would not curse God. And eventually, Job's wealth, health, and family were restored. Even Job could be grateful. Scientists have done many a study to show that gratitude is good for your health. And they found out that people who practice an attitude of gratitude sleep better. Maybe they're counting blessings rather than sheep, and it's more effective. They have better relationships with other people. Their blood pressure is lower. They're just generally in better health. And I think of how Jesus healed lepers. We don't hear about him touching them or giving them a special medicine or even saying any words. What seemed to initiate the healing was the lepers asking for it, asking Jesus, please help me. And that made me think of the 12-step program, AA, it has a Christian spiritual basis to it, which the very first step is to ask, realize you have a problem and ask for help, that you cannot solve it on your own. So it made me think that was a part of the healing. If those lepers had let Jesus pass by, they would not have received a healing. Even suffering can be something that we can be grateful for, which sounds really strange. I've heard people or read and seen stories about people who've had cancer who said, I'm really grateful I had this cancer because it changed my life and now I'm really happy. I know that doesn't happen with everybody, but you will hear those stories every once in a while, and I don't know what that feels like, but it gets my attention. Ram Dass is someone who made a comment about this, and he said, when I look back on the suffering of my life, this may sound really strange, but I see it now as a gift. I would never have asked for it for a second. I hated it while it was happening, and I protested loudly as I could. Sounds a bit like Job. But suffering happened anyway. And now in retrospect, I see the way in which it deepened my being immeasurably. So, one thing as a Christian that we can say is that we don't always understand why suffering happens. We don't want to suffer. We're not happy about it. But we are grateful that in the midst of suffering, we can turn to God and know that God will never leave us alone. And God will eventually, in time, restore our health, our wealth, our well-being. And it may not be in our time. It may be in eternity. Another thing I'm really grateful for is that it's World Communion Sunday. This Sunday, when we have communion, we will be participating in communion along with people all over the world. It would have started last night when we went to bed. People in different time zones having communion. Presbyterians, Methodists, Catholics, Lutherans, Pentecostals, Baptists, thousands of other denominations, and even those without denominations. Christ followers meet in public and in secret. Some meet in freedom while others are gathered under the threat of persecution and death. And some take the sacrament today with organ music, others with simple singing, and still others in quiet so as not to be arrested. In wealthy churches and in desperate poverty, the sacrament is observed. In churches, homes, huts, in God's creation, this seal of the covenant was experienced. And the bread is given to people that could overeat all day, and to people who have no idea what they would eat or or where they would get it today. And I just want to conclude with a poem about communion all around the world. It's called The Table with No Edges. We will sit down where feet tire from the journey. We will sit down where grief bends the back. We will sit down under roofs wrecked by artillery. We will sit down where cries sounded from cracked walls. We will sit down where heat beats like hammers. We will sit down where flesh shivers in cold. We will sit down where bread bakes on thin charcoal. We will sit down where there is no rain in baked fields. We will sit down with those who dwell in ashes. We will sit down in shadow and in light. We will sit down making friends out of strangers. We will sit down, our cup filled with new wine. We will sit down and let love flow like language. We will sit down where speech needs no words. We will sit together at the table with no edges. We will sit to share one loaf in Christ's name in one world. Thanks be to God. And I invite you now to join in singing as we gather at your table. And I didn't pick someone to help me serve communion. Is there a volunteer who would like to stand up with me? Sorry to put people on the spot. Malcolm, wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you. Yes. Before we begin our communion liturgy, I just want to say that the liturgy we're following was written for World Communion Sunday. So this liturgy will be practiced in many places around the world today. And the artwork that we see up on the screen was created for World Communion Sunday also. Let us pray. God, open our hearts and minds to experience the mystery that resides in the bread and the fruit of the vine, and help us to experience, as Jesus did, and as his disciples did, this holy meal, this holy sacrament in your presence. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. For over 200 years, God's people have gathered in this place of worship, coming to share in the life of this community and remember the one who calls us into relationship.
We gather here as many have before us.
We eat bread as the disciples did, saying,
Christ's body was broken for me.
we drink fruit from the of the vine, saying,
Christ's blood was poured out for me.
over the centuries, since Jesus' death and resurrection, countless people have gathered at countless tables to break bread.
Bread for the journey.
Over the centuries, since Jesus' death and resurrection, countless people have gathered at countless tables to drink the fruit of the vine, wine or grape juice. Today, around the world, countless people gather once again at countless tables to enact the meal to which Jesus invites us. In a cathedral, a country church, on a riverbank, in times of peace, in times of war, on every continent.
Jesus invites all people to this table.
Our worship brings us to this table.
We are his guests. He welcomes us. Come and receive them. We break broken in Christ's name. He makes us the body of Christ. God sharing Christ's name. Refresh us with his spirit.
Let us eat and drink in wonder, in gratitude, and in anticipation, remembering countless people at countless tables in countless generations all around the world who have done the same. Come and be thankful, for all is ready. The night before Jesus died, he took bread and he broke it, saying to his friends, his disciples, "This bread is my body broken for you." On the same night, he took wine, he poured it into a cup, and he lifted it up to his friends, saying, "When you drink from this cup, remember me. This is my blood poured out for you." Have a blessing. We invite you now to Christ's table, and we will do this. Maybe if you could start, and just we'll start this side of the church, and I'll let you figure it out from there. So now, if you can come forward, and could you go forward? Let us pray. We be blessed by your presence as we are ever blessed. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you. Now is our time of offering. Like the one leper, the Samaritan, who returned to say thank you to Jesus, we have many ways of saying thank you. We say thank you in prayer and in song and in worship. We say thank you by paying it forward, by giving back. Your offering will now be received.